Of alcoholic expert. I'm the director for the Center for Self-Differentiation, and I offer office and inline services for individuals, marriages, and families. This video is entitled, Why My Relationships Don't Work: Adult Children of Alcoholics. This video is a video on the experience of ACA, and I do use ACOA and ACA interchangeably, adult children of alcoholics. This is a video about the experiences of those who've been in relationship, and I wanted to share a few things from over the decades in working with ACAs and share with you some of the experiences they have shared with me about relationships and how difficult relationships can be for adult children of alcoholics, especially if we are not in recovery, and especially if we have not done the recovery work in our own lives. They have even reported that they have been told, ACAs and ACOAs, that we are told there's something wrong with you. What is wrong with you? And maybe some of you have heard that from some of your spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners. And what I know is this: ACOAs are doing the best that they can. They spend their whole lives trying to do the right thing, trying to think the right way, behave in the right way, feel in the right way, and that the very last thing they want is an unhealthy relationship with dramas, ups and downs, chaos. And so often they keep trying to do the right thing and to do relationships right and to find love and acceptance. These are things which often go eluded and are elusive for the ACA, and they were elusive for them when they were growing up. So we then go on a lifelong search for these aspects and for these things, often not finding them because of our brokenness and where we have come from. The problem is most ACAs do not know what they are looking for, and they've never learned how to find it and have never practiced having it. So they don't know what they're looking for, they've never learned how to find it, and they've never practiced having it. It is hard to find what you're looking for when you've never seen it. And I think that's what makes it so difficult for ACAs in relationships. They're trying to live in such a way they have not had experience with, and then become very frustrated, have problems, broken relationships, unhappy relationships, and they wonder, why can't I be happy like those folks? I see these happy couples, or I see those people who are happy. Why can't I find that? ACA ask themselves those questions. These are some things that ACA report to me that they feel in relationships. Healthy relationships or stable relationships require consistency and stability. This is very difficult for ACAs. All we have learned growing up was inconsistency and instability. So we are calm in a crisis and are crazy or drama folks during calm. And I think that dynamic is very common for ACAs. It also is problematic for marriages and families when that dynamic happens. But that's something we should look out for. They also report having off and on relationships. They're in love and then they're leaving. Then they're in love and then they pull back. And that's what I call a pull or push relationship. They're either pushing or they're pulling. Pushing forward or pursuing, or pulling back and retreating. And that pattern goes back and forth and back and forth. ACAs often assume that unstable, toxic, abusive, and unavailable relationship is just around the corner. And so we end up being hypervigilant in our relationships. We can't relax. We can't be at peace. We can't be calm about relationships because we're always worried about what's around the corner. Because growing up, we were always worried about what's around the corner. Alcoholic families, addicted families were quite chaotic and difficult to manage emotionally. So the ACA becomes hypervigilant as an adult, and this does not allow them to relax, to chill out, to be calm. It's very difficult for ACAs to do that without recovery. ACAs experience sudden love changes, again from love one minute to anger the next, to coldness, accusing. ACAs, of course, feel unlovable and unworthy. And so they experience a very high degree of allergy to intimacy. If you have an allergy to something, the more you have it, the more reactive you become. If I am allergic to a bee sting, if I get one bee sting, I have a reaction. If I get 10 bee stings, I can probably die. It's similar for the adult child of an alcoholic in relationships. And what we are allergic to is intimacy, closeness, authenticity, a trusting, loving relationship. When those things start to happen, the ACA or adult child of an alcoholic starts to become very reactive in their lives. And they become very reactive and cannot sit with and experience a level of love, calmness, and caring from another person. It just hurts, if I can use that word. Good things hurt someone who's broken and not healthy. And I just want to make that point. That's very important. We're allergic to intimacy. So if somebody comes along and wants to be intimate, that does not feel comfortable to us as ACOAs. That does not feel okay. It feels like I should be mistrusting of that. It means abuse or problems are right around the corner. And that's a part of our allergy to intimacy. The ACOAs also talk about relationships in which their heads are full of family voices. There are lots of tapes playing in the heads and hearts of ACAs. And those tapes and those voices are always running. You're not good enough. What's wrong with you? What did you do wrong now? You're unlovable. You're bad. You're wrong. You'll never do it good enough. Those tapes keep playing and those voices keep playing. And I find that very often for adult children of alcoholics. They have a lot of tapes that are playing all the time. Adult children of alcoholics have lots of anger due to what I consider fear, rejection, shame, and abandonment. Because fear, rejection, shame, and abandonment are primary feelings. Anger is a secondary feeling, in my opinion. But what gets seen is the anger. What's underneath it is fear, abandonment, rejection, unworthiness, shame, but what gets shown is often anger or withdrawal. And so reading and interpreting those things can help in the healing process. And again, we often have a secondary feeling of anger. Often anger is a secondary feeling, not primary. It's the one that's easiest to show. So when a man feels hurt, how often does a man say, gosh, that really hurt? No, what the man will do is just get angry because it's okay to be angry. So there's the secondary feeling, but the primary feeling is I felt hurt. And I think particularly for men that's very common, but women it's also true as well. So ACOAs also have reactivity as the norm. So reactivity is often something that happens time and time again, many times a day, many times a week. The ACOA also does not trust the world. The world's not a place to be trusted. They learned that growing up. You don't want to trust the world. The world's not a trustable place. Even people are not trustable. My family's not trustable. And in fact, I'm not even sure I'm trustable. So there's really a deficit of trust for the ACOA. As we know, it's very common for ACOAs to get caught up in addictive behavior as well. Addiction, acting out in unhealthy ways, or hyper-responsibility are the norm. You can either act out in unhealthy ways or act out in over-healthy ways, meaning becoming over-responsible, overdoing, over-good, over-controlled, or the other side, over-irresponsible, over-acting out. And so we'll either flip between those two pendulum swings. Adult children of alcoholics, for them, intimacy is fueled by keeping your real thoughts and feelings to yourself. No one must know the real you because they would not like the real you. They would also not love the real you. So we do not live an authentic life with other people. We live a life that what we think other people would want us to behave, feel, think, and we're always scanning and making sure we're making everybody happy. As a result, roles are the norm and not self-differentiation for the ACA in relationships. So when we find a relationship, we end up acting out all these roles in the relationship. We aren't ourselves. And a relationship, a healthy relationship, requires a self, a true self, not just roles, because roles will end up causing problems. After decades of working with ACAs, these are the things I've found which have interfered with ACAs finding healthy relationships. I wanted to share some of my own experiences further. I find that ACAs have a wounded inner child. The inner child is wounded. It's never been healed. The inner Jerry, the inner me, is not feeling good, never has, and continues to cause me lots of problems. And for many that I've talked to, their inner child is not healed. The ACA have unrealistic, broken, and even toxic expectations about relationships. In other words, they don't know what's normal, so all they have is their toxic view of relationship as to what is normal. They experience low sense of self, little self-differentiation, so enmeshment is the norm. Having a self or a sense of self is not something we got growing up in our families. So we become what the family wants us to become, or we better act the way we're supposed to act. Well, the true self doesn't get developed, and so we don't have the self-differentiation, which counters enmeshment. So we have a lot of enmeshment in relationships, and enmeshment causes lots of problems. ACAs continue to fight battles from childhood and bring them into their adult relationships. So not only are there lots of voices going on in ACAs' heads, but they're fighting those battles internally and then bring them to their adult relationships. And then those battles get acted out in their marriages, in their relationships with others, and it just continues on. That inheritance we get from our family of origin is the gift that keeps on giving. And we continue to act that out until we do the healing work to have that stop. And for ACAs, it's always a joy to see when those things begin to stop. And when the voices begin to stop, and when the patterns begin to stop, and when the inner child begins to be taken care of, they find a sense of calm and peace that they've never known before, because they haven't known that peace. ACAs have an addiction to love caused by excessive neediness. Due to having few emotional needs met early in their life, and for many this neediness is unquenchable, so that no partner could ever do enough or meet needs enough for the ACA. There's no partner out there that could meet the deep well of needs for an ACA and ACOA. And I usually try to educate folks about that, because that's not bad news, that's good news. Because you've got to stop looking to your partner to meet those needs, because they can never meet it enough. We must look to ourselves and our own recovery and healing to meet those needs. What I teach people time and time again is that there is no adult relationship that can heal childhood wounds. If you've been wounded by your parents, as adults, your parents can't fix those wounds. You must do the work of healing those wounds. I don't mean by that parents can't have a better relationship with their children, or parents can't even say, hey, I'm sorry for what happened. I really am sorry. But remorse is not the same thing as healing that. So I just am saying your parents, your family of origin, your husbands, your spouses cannot fix that which is broken in you. That's your work to do, and that's what the work of ACOA recovery is about. The bad news is others can't do it. The good news is you can. After many failed relationships, the ACA have been looking for healthy relationships. They often over years, tend to give up. They settle for unhealthy relationships or settle for no relationships at all, believing there's something wrong with their relationship partners or with them. They know there's something wrong because over years you kind of look at that and go, there's something not working. So I will just settle into living the fortress life, like a fortress or a castle. No one gets in, and I will just live that way. And many times, sadly, ACOAs or ACAs settle for the life in a fortress emotionally, because they can't figure it out. They can't find what they're looking for, so I'll just stay behind the walls. ACAs continue to wonder why relationships are so difficult and wonder how can other people seem so happy. They probably really aren't that happy. They can't be. So really, they're not happy. What I'm seeing is just an illusion. But really, ACAs feel very much a purity of heart, which I really believe exists, in that they truly want to be happy, and they truly want to find someone to be happy with. And that is their search. They just don't have the map, the road, the means, the recovery yet to do that. But it's not as though they don't have a sincere desire for it to happen. What I want to share with you here at the end of the video is that I would encourage you to get the big red book for ACAs, or Adult Children of Alcoholics. I'll try to put on the screen the website where you can purchase that book. There's also a great 12-step workbook for ACAs. I would strongly recommend that as well. And if you'd like to email me, I have contact information on the screen for you. I'll send you a complete listing of all my free videos on YouTube, explain the online process of working with me, explain fees, answer any of your questions you might have, and there's no pressure. I'm very easy to work with. Check out Andrew's list for lots of recommendations, and I hope you will join our YouTube channel. If you would, I would be very grateful. I want to thank you very much for watching today, and have a great day. Hi, my name is Jerry Wise. Today I'd like to present a video entitled 7 Keys to Learning How to Empathize. Empathy is a real problem these days for marriages, for relationships, in politics, and in lots of areas of our society. I work primarily with marriages and couples, and I also work with families and helping people to grow within their family of origins so that they can be healthier, happier people. This video came out of a need that I saw in individuals who struggled with the skill of empathy. I work with a lot of folks who are adult children of dysfunctional families, and empathy is a real problem. Many times individuals have not had the experience of empathy in their lives and have difficulties practicing it in their relationships. It does not come naturally. Well, let me share, what is empathy? Empathy is the ability to feel and share another person's emotions. I mean that in a healthy way. I think many times codependents are overly fused with other people and feel into and share into other people's emotions and feelings. The problem is they're not aware of their own, and that ends up being hyper empathizing with a very low ability to be aware and express your own emotions, creating a problem we call codependency. Empathy is a healthy ability to feel and share another person's emotions while being a self and being a healthy you. Some believe that empathy involves the ability to match another's emotions, while others believe that empathy involves being tender-hearted towards another person. There are a number of definitions regarding empathy, but empathy is very important for communication, and particularly for relationship communication. Since empathy involves understanding and sharing emotional states of other people, this skill is essential for healthy and happy marriages with less conflict. Well, first of all, I wanted to share, why is empathy or empathizing so hard? These reasons are the most common that I have found. People have trouble empathizing because they feel, if I empathize, I feel I become vulnerable. If I take your side or understanding your side, it makes me far too vulnerable. And so I stay on my side, working hard not to empathize. Second, if I empathize, it weakens my position because it proves that I agree with you. Many people see empathy as a sign of agreement. Again, if I understand your thoughts, understand your feelings, and share and understand what's going on with you emotionally, I therefore must agree with you. So since I cannot agree with you, because I may not agree with you, then I don't empathize. Because that would make me too vulnerable. That would also give up my position or my beliefs. Some believe that empathy is an expression of personal weakness. If I don't stay strong in my position, which means not empathizing with you, then I am being weak. If I empathize with someone, I am somehow being soft or weak in the relationship. Another reason why I think empathizing can be so difficult, particularly in marriage relationships, if I empathize with you, I will have to deal with my fears. Because one problem I might have is that if I shared your belief, understood your emotions, it might tap into fears, struggles, feelings that I don't wish to tap into. so I do not empathize. Again, it's too threatening to empathize, so we don't. Another reason, if I empathize, it would be too intimate, and I am allergic to intimacy. A lot of folks have grown up with an allergy to an allergy to intimacy, and as a result, they cannot empathize because it would make a couple or them in the relationship become too close, too real. And empathy has a way of warming up a relationship, bringing two people together when you empathize, and that just may be too much intimacy, and their allergy to intimacy is just too great, so I just can't empathize. What are some of the things that get in the way of empathy? I think having a past experience of hardly ever being empathized with. Folks who grew up in their family of origin and there was very little empathy going on, especially in dysfunctional families, they had little modeling or experience for empathy. So they just really don't know how to do it. They haven't seen it work. They haven't seen how healthy and helpful and warm it feels. And so they just don't have that experience. Some have never learned how to empathize. They weren't taught how do you empathize. Parents didn't say, now when your friend was doing that, let me tell you what you might do, or let me share with you how they might have been thinking or feeling. Parents having not taught that, then the child doesn't learn that as readily. So they have never learned how to empathize, and maybe not even know how to do it. Past abuse can get in the way of empathy. Depression can get in the way of empathy. Counterdependency gets in the way of empathy. Again, if I tend towards a more narcissistic way of looking at the world, it's me-centered, then I have a hard time kind of understanding your part of the world. Because basically my world is what matters, not yours. And that's counterdependency or narcissism. Mood disorders can cause real problems for intimacy because often folks with mood disorders or depression and such, they don't have the insight to do that. Too much anxiety can create difficulties for empathy. Growing up feeling unlovable, growing up feeling unforgivable. If we don't feel lovable and we don't feel forgivable, it is very difficult to empathize with other people. It is just too painful to do that. So let me talk about how can we learn how to empathize. Empathy is not difficult, it just takes practice. Simply, if I thought that way that you think, or saw things the way you see them, I could understand the way you feel. And that's a statement of empathy. If I saw the world from your eyes, I probably would feel that way and think that way. That's empathizing. So what are 7 keys to empathizing? The first key is you got to choose to want to. If you don't want to, you're not going to do it. So we have to choose to will ourselves to be empathetic and to empathize more with those around us or our spouse. Second of all, bracket your thoughts, feelings, and conclusions or arguments and set them on the shelf temporarily. This may not be easy. If we've had a lot of trouble with enmeshment, fusion, dysfunction, it's kind of hard to step outside our own conclusions, thoughts, and feelings. But that can be learned. But first we can work on bracketing them. For right now, and I'm going to practice that, I'm going to set my feelings, emotions, and thoughts over here on the shelf and try to understand yours. That's a very good work, and it will pay off greatly if we practice that. Then after we've bracketed our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and conclusions, choose the other side. Argue their case mentally. Take their side mentally and emotionally. Take their side. It doesn't mean you don't have your side. It doesn't mean you don't have your experience. But empathy is about taking their side for the moment. Fourthly, learn how to listen or practice active listening. Listen for their feelings and how it would connect to their logic, and how their feelings would connect to their thoughts. In other words, if you thought I was trying to hurt you, then I could understand why you might feel hurt. Now, that doesn't mean I was trying to hurt you, but I can understand if you thought that, I can understand how you could feel this. And again, that's empathy. I'm feeling into your experience. Fifthly, examine where you learned not to empathize. Do your family of origin work of recovery. That will help you with empathy. Sixth, deal with your anger, resentment, hurt, feelings of betrayal, and look for emotional triangles. Me, them, and them, or it. We often get involved in emotional triangles, which makes it much more difficult for us to empathize. But if we deal with our anger, our resentment, it allows us to empathize with others more. And again, the more we hurt, the less we feel good about ourselves, the more difficult it is to feel into and care about the thoughts and feelings of others. In other words, our bucket is empty. How am I going to hear your bucket or even understand your bucket? So we have to deal with our bucket first so I can empathize more. Seventh, think counterintuitively. In other words, what is not logical or rational or follows in a logical way for your way of thinking. Don't think about how you think and feel. Think about the opposite. In other words, if I'm thinking, well, I didn't try to hurt them, why would they feel hurt? I wasn't trying to hurt them at all. I can't even imagine that. Counterintuitive thinking and feeling would be, if I were to think I was being hurt, then I could understand how I might feel hurt. That's counterintuitive to the way you are thinking and feeling. Because you're thinking and feeling, I absolutely did not hurt them and wouldn't, and that's just nutty. But that's not empathy. Empathy requires us to see it from their eyes, to stand in their shoes, and to feel it from their, and to see the movie from their seat in the movie house, not from our seat. And again, just because I empathize doesn't mean I agree. Because I can say, if you thought I was hurting you, I can understand why you might feel hurt. Whereas I know inside that there was no desire or intention for me to do that at all. So I still hold my position and conclusions, but I'm putting those in abeyance. I'm setting them aside while I'm caring about you and how you see the world. That's empathy. I want to share with you a good website if you want a resource. There's a great one by Peter Garriott. I'm not sure how to say his name. He's a social worker from Portland, Oregon, and it's called Break the Cycle. And I think he's got some really good tips and helps regarding empathizing. And you might go to his website and it could be of help to you. I hope you've enjoyed the video today. I hope you'll join our website, YouTube website, and give me a call if I can be of help. I do in-office and online therapy. Watch my other free videos, and I want to thank you for listening. Have a great day. Hi, my name is Jerry Wise, and today's video is entitled Codependency, Living Life on a Pendulum. As a codependency expert, I provide my clients with knowledge and insight about how to live a codependent-free life. And this video is about one of the concepts of mine involving the pendulum effect of codependency. I believe that a life of codependency is a life spent swinging back and forth between over closeness or enmeshment over here and distance and cutoff clear over here. So if we think of relationship life as being like a compass, you've seen one of those compasses in school, and you have the 0 degrees over to 180 degrees, and then 90 degrees is in the middle. We swing back and forth between 0 degrees and 180 degrees. From one side, the pendulum swings to the other. And this is classic for those of us who suffer from and experience codependency. The reason why the codependent does this swing is because we lack a sense of self. We lack self-esteem, self-awareness, self-worth, a good self-image, and because we lack all of that selfness that's so important, I don't mean selfishness, I mean selfness, because selfness is living a life at the 90-degree mark, living a life in the middle. Because we don't have that sense of self, we find ourselves ping-ponging back and forth between 0 degrees of enmeshment, over closeness, fusion, to all the way to the other side, which is cut off, too much separateness. There's always a push and pull for us to push us to one side or pull us to the other side of this compass that is 180 degrees, to push us up to one end or to push us up to the other. And in that push and pull, we don't have a strong enough sense of self that we find ourselves going to the extremes and have a very difficult landing and keeping ourselves centered at the 90-degree mark, which is in the middle. Enmeshment or emotional fusion is the symptom. The lack of self is the problem. We learn very early in life to jump on the pendulum and ride it as we relate to others. Our lack of self begins in our family of origin. That's where we learn these dysfunctional behaviors. That's where we continue to experience the emotional forces that are still within us from our family of origin, and that we still experience today as adults. Let me talk about this pendulum again. The pendulum swings from one side to the other. However, there are two sides, and of course the middle is where we want to land, is the healthiest place to land. But those two extremes are actually two sides of the same coin. The same coin is fusion. Either we enmesh because of fusion, or we cut off because of fusion. If someone is cut off from someone, then I know there's too much enmeshment and too much fusion. If someone is enmeshed with someone or codependent, then I know there's too much fusion also. So fusion is a problem on either end. And maturity is about gaining more sense of self, less fusion, and more distinctness and differentness for ourselves, and having a healthy separateness as well as connectedness. Let me give you an example. When I was a pastor, I hungered for connectedness and closeness and intimacy and self-worth. I would find myself choosing to be with people who could also fuse and join me in that very over-close relationship. I needed that, and I wanted that. My brokenness and lack of self and lack of self-connectedness got acted out in a search for and a requirement of relationship enmeshment. And this is the 0-degree side. Clear over here on this side. I was looking for that connectedness. And I thought if I could just fuse with enough people, if I could just fuse or enmesh with others, then I would be happy, be loved, be fulfilled, be cared about, and people wouldn't leave me because we would be over close. Any relationship is, by nature, unstable. Well, the problem is, as you probably have realized by now, relationships are filled with situations in which things are not calm. There may be hurt, there may be lots of imperfections, there may be conflicts. All relationships are flawed. All relationships are intense at times. They experience conflict, disagreements, and even pain. But my codependency and lack of self wanted to avoid all of this. So I developed over close and enmeshed relationships. I thought if we were enmeshed enough or over close enough, too connected enough, then none of that would happen. Well, relationships tend to always kind of be great at the beginning, especially enmeshed ones. Just like the honeymoon phase of a marriage or dating, I over-idealize the goodness and the positive sides of other people. I only wanted to see the good in people and tended to be naive about people and relationships. Also naive about myself. There was a couple in the church when I was pastoring that I wanted to have a close relationship with. We became very close, in fact over close, sharing everything in our lives. And this relationship with this couple had a very multi-layered relationship. I was their pastor, I was friends, I was their counselor, I was their administrator, I was even their neighbor. I was all of this to them, and they were all of these things to me. Then reality set in. Conflicts arose. People were imperfect. People did not meet my needs or my neediness. Needs and neediness are two different things. I want to point that out. And they didn't meet my needs like I wanted them to. They failed me. They disagreed with me. They, out of their immaturity, would even talk negative about me to other people or other parishioners. And at times, they even acted like they liked other people more than me, which of course injured my fragile ego and injured my sense of self, which had very low self-esteem. My closeness fantasy, which is codependency, it was shattered. So what do we codependents do next? If we're over close and we're over connected, then the next thing we do is blow apart and we cut off. I stopped paying attention to them, stopped calling them, talked about them with others, overemphasized their weaknesses and imperfections, and actually at times even wanted them to hurt like I felt they were hurting me. That was my immaturity, my codependency. Now I was in a cut-off position with them, which is not the 0 position over here, but all the way over to the 180 degree mark over here, the 180 degree change, which is the cut-off position. But the cutoff position was for the same reason as the 0 degree position, because I wanted to be over close. And because I couldn't handle conflict or intimacy or closeness or fear of abandonment or all of the other problems that I experienced, that I thought I could resolve or help myself or protect myself by going into a cutoff position. And then that will save me. If I just cut off from them and don't like them anymore, then I don't have to deal with them anymore. But actually, as we know, that's just a fantasy. And when people come and tell me, yes, they hurt me really bad, but I just never think about that anymore. Well, that tells me they haven't resolved it. They've just stuffed it and pushed it down. They've just gone into a cutoff mode. They haven't healed from it. So then what? Now that we're in a cut-off position with this couple in the family, in the church, this family in the church, What do codependents do next? Well, we made up, as good Christians should do, as good religious people should do. We should make up, say we're sorry, and then we start the painful process all over again. And this gets repeated over and over and over again. I did this time and time again, never knowing how to stop the pendulum, never knowing what made the pendulum exist in my life. I had no knowledge of a healthy paradigm or a good emotional map for how to view myself and how to view relationships. My map was entitled The Map of Neediness and Low Self-Worth and Yearning for Love. Map is what it was. In short, the lack of self-differentiation is the reason why the pendulum exists. And that's what we learn when we learn more about family systems and when we learn how relationships work. Knowing there are two forces at work in a relationship, and those two forces are called togetherness and separateness, and they're always working all of the time. And how you manage those two forces will determine whether you can stay in the 90-degree mark or whether you go to 180 or to the 0 mark. So understanding how those two forces are at work in your life. So what does a non-swinging or non-pendulum swinging relationship look like? What does it feel like? I needed a new map or a new paradigm. I needed therapy. I needed a Bowen Family Systems view or knowledge of relationships and how they work, because I didn't know. And that was the new map that I needed. The more intense a relationship gets, the more we feel compelled to swing from 0 to 180. So how do I keep myself calm and the relationship calmer so I can act in a more mature adult 90-degree way, which is also less reactive? I needed to see myself living in a relationship system which included my family of origin, my current relationships, and my extended relationships and work relationships, and that they all worked the same because they all had one thing in common: me. I needed to learn to love and care about the little Jerry who is inside of me. I needed to practice staying as close to the 90-degree mark as possible, staying connected while not losing myself, being myself while not disconnecting. I did not know one could even see it, let alone learn how to do it. I had to take responsibility for my own enmeshment, my own fusion, and my own cutoff. While forces are at work in all relationships to pull you to over closeness and to push you to cutoff, it's up to you to remain centered and stay at the 90-degree mark. So if you want to heal abandonment, learn to not abandon yourself. Then you will have fewer feelings of abandonment. If you want to learn how to have less shame, be less shaming to yourself, and then you will be less shaming to others and also experience less shame. If we stop abandoning ourselves through enmeshment and cutoff, if we stop hurting ourselves by getting help and asking for help, if we stop shaming ourselves and learn self-care, then the 90-degree place is easier to maintain. It feels much safer, much more centered, much more healthy, much more loving, and more freeing to ourselves and to others. If you want to learn more, contact me at 317-919-6264. I hope you'll join our channel on YouTube. And for out-of-area clients, I can provide life coaching and marital coaching via FaceTime and Skype. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day.
wanted to do a short and brief live this evening or today, depending upon where you are in the world and in the country. But I wanted to do a little talking today. I wanted to make sure if you cannot hear me, be sure to let me know. But I'm using AirPods so I don't scrape the earbuds on my collar. And tonight, I wanted to talk to you about feelings, at least briefly give some points about feelings that might be of help to you. And again, are you hearing me okay? I just wanted to check. I see a couple of people have come on. I just want to make sure you can hear me, and I don't want to do a whole live without being heard. Great. Thanks, Patty. I wanted to, and Carol, I see here tonight, several people are here. It's wonderful to have you. I want to first mention, as I always want to mention, the upcoming online program, the flagship program of mine, the 6-week online program that are major modules. There are 6 of them. You can learn at your own pace. There's exercises and extraneous materials, other materials that come. And it starts the last day to sign up for the pre-launch discount is May the 5th. So I just want everybody to know that. And that comes with extras, bonuses. There are other things that are going to be provided to you as well. And then after May 7th, the price will be changing. And thank you for your encouragement I see in the comments. So we have the online program coming up, Your New Road to Self. And each module deals with a different dynamic and a different theoretical idea and my beliefs about healing and recovery, so that you will get a really in-depth view of these concepts. And you can re-listen to it, and it should be a help to you. I wish I'd have had it 40 years ago. I wish I'd have had it 35 years ago. I wish I could have watched something like I've put together. I really think that would have helped me, because at that time, about the only way you could get that information is kind of go to academic books. And most people were just not reading academic books as self-help. And it's kind of difficult to weed out what really would be helpful and usable. And I've taken all that and made it helpful and usable. And again, I think would save someone a lot of time in therapy, save them thousands of dollars in therapy, to have this information and to go through this experience. So tonight, we are talking about 4 things that your toxic family or dysfunctional family did not teach you about emotions. And I want to do some of that today, and I want to talk to you about, and thank you, Shirley. That's so kind of you. Watching you has changed my life. I have heard, believe it or not, I have heard that a lot. Now, but don't worry, I don't get a big head, because I know it's not just because of somehow I'm a genius and I'm smarter than everybody else. I'm not. I have just had to do what I teach people to do. And I think that's the best kind of therapist, coach, psychologist, even psychiatrist, any mental health professional, social worker. I want you to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And in this theory, in family systems theory, you only are able to you're only able to give what you have and what you've learned and achieved. I can't take anybody past where I'm at. And I think that's an important concept. No therapist is going to take you past where they are. Now, they may be ahead of you and may be able to help you, and I think many therapists can. But I also know there are many therapists that have limitations. I do too. I've had limitations as well, but I wanted to broaden and go beyond those limitations by implementing this for myself and doing this work. Um, and so, I have had to do what I teach people to do. And that's why when people ask me questions, I know what their answers are. I know what the answers are. I know, and it's not because I just read them in a book, because when I was going through that phase of learning, that's exactly what I thought, is what they're asking about. And I remember thinking that way and going, well, what would I say at this point? I remember going, I don't know what I would say. I don't know what my response would be. I don't know what a healthy, mature response would be at this time. So I've had to learn those things, and then I can offer those to you. Um, and the neat thing is, I like to share my experience, faith, hope, and all of those things with clients and with viewers. And the neat thing about it is, I'm not trying to make you me. I'm hoping you will make you you. I don't want you to become a mini Jerry. I want you to become you. That's what, because I can only be me. I can't be you. You can't be me. And I can only do my own work about me being me. Now, I can tell you what that me being me experience has been, or what have been the difficulties, or how to break through in certain ways. I can do that. But that's still not me wanting you to be me. I don't want you to be me. The whole purpose is for us to be us. And is there a way to do that? Um, and I obviously believe there are ways to do that. So when again we talk about toxic families or dysfunctional families and emotions, if in a family growing up in a dysfunctional family, if emotions were discouraged, and if emotions were, I don't want to say, challenged, and if the family was so tense and so anxious that whenever somebody had an emotion bubbling, it just it just raised the roof off the emotions for the family, or the emotional reactivity for the family, and that feelings were always discouraged, and they're not important, don't say that, oh, just get on with that, oh, just, what happens is, when in dysfunctional families, whatever we discourage and wish to put out in a dysfunctional family ends up being the most important thing as to how the family is functioning. Because people will say, oh, well, we didn't deal with emotions at all when I was growing up. You know what I say? Oh, then you were dealing with emotions 24/7 all of the time. You just couldn't communicate them. Because when you suppress all that, now we have this emotional anxiety that's always happening, and feeling stuff and all kinds of stuff going on that we can't do anything about. That becomes very important, too important. And so what happens is, whenever I see a family that does not do emotions, I already know there's way too many emotions going on. They're just under the surface. And so, if we're able to have a comfortable relationship with our feelings and our emotions, then they neither take over nor do they need to be suppressed. They're a normal, natural way to express ourselves, and for our brain to use that feeling information to help us make decisions in a healthy way with those feelings. But again, if you suppress all that, then I'm telling you, this family is full of emotional tension. They just don't. aren't aware of it or are not conscious of it or don't accept it or in denial about it. So, and then the other side, the flip side. So one coin is we didn't do anything with emotions. The other flip side of the coin, and say a toxic family and emotionality, is well, our family showed our emotions all the time. We were loud and we'd say whatever we felt, and we shared all kinds of stuff. Uh, and I tend to go, well, then it sounds like instead of showing all of your emotions all the time, you were showing your reactivity all the time, not necessarily your true healthy feelings. Because yeah, some families can be very technicolor in terms of their emotions and things like that. If this family operates on rage, is that them sharing their emotions with each other? No, that's them being stuck in a cycle of reactivity all the time. That's not being okay or making friends with emotions or having them be a normal part of our internal emotional process. That's not what that is. Now, is rage a feeling? Well, I suppose it is. So is anger. But that's not what I mean by healthy or emotional health in a family. Okay, I think I'm back now. I think we had just a little bit of a technical problem there. So, I would like to share four things tonight, four simple things about what your family may not have taught you about um, feelings in dysfunctional families. One of the things they may not have taught you was not all feelings are equal. Not all feelings are equal. And some have taught, and I've even seen it in books, I've heard other therapists talk about it, some have even talked about feelings are always, feelings are never wrong. Now, I agree with them from the standpoint that no one should be shamed about their feelings. Nobody should be judged for their feelings. But that's kind of a blanket statement that feelings are never wrong. Well, what if they're not true feelings? What if they're systems feelings? What if they're feelings you're supposed to feel because that's what your role requires you to operate on those feelings in this family system? Is that true feelings? Is that healthy feelings? I would tend to say no, they're not. Now, does that mean I should be shamed because I have systems feelings? Or I might get more upset than I need to or should be? No, it's not for criticism's sake. It's for realizing that not all feelings are equal. I remember teaching a course on, I think it was, and I was, when I was stuttering, well, probably doing that too. When I was studying pastoral counseling, I remember doing a seminar at a large church where I was working at, and I think doing pastoral counseling there, family and marriage and family therapy. And I did a seminar on the 6 types of guilt. 6 types of guilt. I thought there's just guilt or not guilt. There's different types of guilt, and not all guilt is equal. And so we want to remember not all feelings are equal. There may be 6 different types of anger, 6 different types of sadness, but at least for guilt, I can at least some of them that I can think of is just there is toxic guilt. Is that normal feelings if we have toxic guilt? If we have family guilt, if we have spiritual guilt, some people who are in faith and who are in religious communities, they can have spiritual guilt. And they might talk about the Holy Spirit convicting them, or, and that's a spiritual guilt. And that's acceptable. That is a form of guilt. Um, But there are lots of, and then there's false guilt. And then I remember even teaching in that environment, which I don't do that currently, but in that environment, even talking about demonic guilt. Is that possible? I mean, Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled, the psychiatrist who writes about there really is truly evil in the world. So evil guilt, maybe we should use maybe that term. There are different types of guilt, so not all feelings are equal, and we want to embrace that and accept that and begin to see our lives in that way. That, wait a minute, I don't want to give every feeling equal time and equal weight, because we don't want to give them equal weight and equal time. If I'm feeling guilty because I brought green bean casserole and my mother wanted me to bring lasagna, and I'm feeling guilty, really guilty, I'm not sure how important that guilt is. That sounds more like you disappointed mom guilt. Well, I didn't have time. I didn't get that all. I didn't get that. I didn't have the time to prepare lasagna. Lasagna takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, lots of layers. Green bean casserole may not. And so that's what I could do, rather than, oh, I feel so bad. I know mom, I didn't even promise mom I'd bring it, but that's her expectation. So now I should feel guilt. That is that healthy, normal guilt, or is that some kind of systems or false guilt? I would lean it over here in the systems or false guilt. And I think, making those distinctions between the type of guilt that we have and not just saying all feelings are equal and should be treated equally. And, I really, whoops, looks like moved to iPhone. I don't know if my earpods went somewhere. Let me try and, let me make sure the earpods are back here. So I believe I'm still connected, and I believe you should be able to hear me. I hope so. So that's number one. Let me talk about number two. And again, I do want to mention that in the upcoming online program that's going to be starting soon, thank you, Sage, I'm glad you could hear, that I'm going to be going into depth into all of these ideas. I'll be talking much more about all of these ideas. The second one, feelings are for self-consultation and expressing feelings in intimate relationships and friendships, and also for helping the brain make decisions. That's a mouthful. I'll read that for you again, just so you kind of get an idea about feelings and the nature. What are feelings for? Why do we humans have them? Feelings are for self-consultation, meaning, hi Christine, meaning that it's a way for me to check in with me. And that's how feelings are a self-consultation. I'm consulting myself about how I feel, etc. And in expressing feelings to intimate relationships, because I may want to use those feelings to express affection, intimacy with friends, partners, family, etc. And then lastly, feelings are important in helping the brain make decisions. Now, I'm going to make a very important point. I didn't say the feeling should make the decision. Our frontal cortex, our more thinking part of the brain, should make the decision, but feelings can inform those decisions. And that's okay, as long as they don't totally drive the boat. We don't want the feelings driving the boat. But It can guide our decisions. Also, feelings are helpful in making quick decisions in the brain. In other words, we already have a felt sense of whether we value that or like that or not. That's a felt sense in the feeling emotional world of ours. And then we can make a decision more quickly because we have that felt sense about, no, this is not me. No, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go this way. Or you go buy a car, and then you might just have that sense of, because you've had all these patterns, and emotions help us with those patterns so we can put information together more quickly in the brain. And so feelings can help with that. So feelings can be a very helpful and healthy thing, as long as they are not totally running the train, you know, and they're not coming out of a whole bunch of hurt, harm, trauma, reactivity, as long as they're not from that perspective. Um, Thirdly, and this is what I've been suggesting, feelings need to remain in our passenger seat of our car. Us being the car, they need to remain in the passenger seat, not in the driver's seat. When we, in dysfunctional families and toxic families, we learn that feelings, gosh, I'm not even sure feelings were supposed to be in the driver's seat or the passenger seat or neither seat, and that we should either be numb about it, or unconsciously we're always reacting to our feelings. That fits well into a dysfunctional family. When you're always reacting to your feelings, that's the norm. Or you're just numb, iced out, you're just paralyzed, feeling paralysis. Um, and and that's a very painful position to be in. So when you think about family systems and thinks about being your true self, what would be a healthy balance for feelings? Having the feelings in the passenger seat, our thoughts and cognition in the driver's seat. I don't want the feelings in the back seat. I want them in the passenger seat, but I don't want them in the driver's seat. If you want to keep a dysfunctional family going and continuing, just put your feelings in the driver's seat, and you'll go right along with the whole. You'll be led around by the nose in a dysfunctional family with that. And so it's important to have the feelings in the passenger seat. Um, I can't think of the name of that book. I'll think of it here. Uh, he talks about feelings and where they are in the driver's seat. He does a really good a good explanation of that. I'll put it in the description if it doesn't come to me. Um, and then lastly, I wanted to talk about um, learning the language of feelings is important for those who want to know themselves and to grow into their true selves. And I think it's very difficult for someone to come into their own and coming to know their true selves if they don't have a language for their feelings. And a lot of people have not grown up with a language for their feelings, which is, it's just like learning a vocabulary lesson. If you took vocabulary, I don't know if they do these days. I remember having vocabulary when I was growing up and had to learn words and what they meant. Same is true for feelings. We get a feelings list, get that off the internet, get lists of feelings. Now I've got a language I can use to express feelings and to begin to connect those with me. If it's not easy, that's okay. Just keep plugging at it. And at any time, and you can put that list in your pocket or your purse or your car or whatever, at any time you can say, I wonder what I'm feeling right now. Let me get my list out. let me grab my list and see what, see what I'm at any time, see if you can come up with what you're feeling. Or pretend somebody just asked you, how are you feeling today? You know, how are you feeling today? Um, then the what you want to do is begin to think about, okay, how do I feel? I feel sad. I feel uh, I feel happy about what's coming up in 2 days. I feel expectant. I feel a little tired. I feel some anxiety or anxiousness over blah. And so I'm just kind of checking in with myself and consulting with myself, which is good self care also when you give your feelings a language.